I'm going to start this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Good morning. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is what we call our group learning program, where each Sunday I come together with students, helping them to develop their meditation practice through first starting with meditation, but then afterwards I move into a talk from our book, which is titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the first book of our book series, where it's gradually helping you to be able to understand the teachings of the Buddha and guiding you to the enlightened mental state. You can actually get this book for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon, because what you can do is slowly learn the teachings of the Buddha, which will guide you to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. An enlightened being no longer experiences any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. And this comes through training of the mind. There's many other benefits as well in terms of getting to enlightenment, but training the mind is what the Buddha actually taught. He didn't teach rules and commandments. He didn't teach rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship. He didn't teach you to believe a bunch of things and hope that something good happens when you die. He taught to be able to learn, grow, and develop in this life, and training your mind in this life to get to the peace and joy in this life. So meditation is an important component of your practice, where you're going to need a certain amount of meditation to train your mind to enlightenment, but there's other things that you would need as well. Today's class, while I'm going to be guiding you in a meditation session, we're actually in chapter 11, and chapter 11 is all about meditation. It's titled Meditation, Developing Your Practice. So after our meditation, I'm going to be teaching you all the ins and outs of meditation, because there's 4 different types of meditation that the Buddha taught, and I'm going to teach you each one of these 4 different types and help you to understand what are the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating through those meditations, and what are the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. So if you'd like to join for our meditation, I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And if you'd like to join along in the chanting, the laminated sheets over there on the cabinet will help you to be able to see what it is that I'm chanting. So you're able to help yourself and get a laminated sheet if you like. For those of you guys that are online, these sheets are available at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books, and then down towards the bottom, you'll be able to see this daily chanting sheet. Because when you're chanting along, the way that we use chanting today is as a way to ease the mind in the meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, chanting was used as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally, because everything he taught was oral. They didn't have the technology to write things down during his lifetime, so they would just recite his teachings every 2 weeks as a way to commit them to their memory. So chanting was used as a learning tool or as a learning device. Nowadays, sometimes people think of it as a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship or prayer or something like that, but nobody during the lifetime of the Buddha, in terms of what the Buddha was teaching, the Buddha didn't even teach those things. So if you see things now that are rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer, those aren't actually from the Buddha. Those are misunderstandings of his teachings. So when I'm chanting, it's helping to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because it's helping to develop awareness of the mind and awareness of the breath. So if you decide to chant along, you'll be able to experience that same benefit. As you're chanting these, and you're maybe even looking at the English translations right now, you can see that there's a lot of gratitude and even admiration and respect for the Buddha. Because of this, I don't think that the Buddha actually even created these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these things to me out of respect to me, right? A Buddha would already have eliminated their ego. They wouldn't be going around, telling people, here, chant these things to me, because there's a lot of admiration and appreciation and respect for the Buddha in these chants. And because of that, I don't even think the Buddha created these chants. They were probably created created by his students either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't go around and teach people to chant these things to him. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger, the sadness, the frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to this peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation and respect for that person too. So I suspect that these actually came from his students. So if you'd like to chant along, you're going to see more benefit as you ease into the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance where I'm actually going to be essentially instructing you and guiding you in meditation while you're actually meditating. So you're going to hear me guiding you throughout the meditation. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and everybody who's joining online will just all be meditating. And during that period of quietness, I suspect you're going to hear some sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. If your mind craves permanent quietness during meditation, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. It's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. The mind in the unenlightened state craves permanence. So if you're in meditation craving permanent silence, but yet you live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. This is why you can eliminate your feelings that are like anger and sadness and frustration and all these others, because it's your own mind that's actually causing these feelings. But if you have a craving for permanence, which the unenlightened mind does, and you're in meditation craving permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. So when you hear a sound in meditation, just understand that it's impermanent, that it's going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away. This is the way that the world works. You'll never be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's just not possible. So if you have that wisdom, you can reside peaceful and joyful, understanding that what you're experiencing is exactly the way the world works, that things are going to arise, change, and fade away. After that period of quietness, then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand this topic of how to develop your meditation practice. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about 4 different types of meditation, and one of them is the one that we're doing today, which is the breathing mindfulness meditation. In terms of your body position, the Buddha taught 4 positions for meditation: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And I'm going to introduce these to you today and help you to learn a bit about them as part of our class. So most of the time, people are learning in the seated position when they're first starting out, either sitting on the floor or in a chair. You can really sit however you like. There isn't just one fixed way to actually sit. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on the different positions when we talk today in our class. But right now, I'll just give you a little bit of guidance on the seated position to help you get started. You can be sitting on the floor, in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can sit however you're comfortable. What I'm going to share with you are just suggestions for you to consider, but you shouldn't think about anything that I teach you as like a hard, fast, you have to sit this way, because there's many different ways to sit. Everybody's body is different. There isn't just one fixed way to actually sit in meditation. But if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and can cause pain in the lower body. Sometimes people like to put their legs off the mat where it gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, again allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way, because there's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. This is the same thing for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you too. Remember, it's not about everyone doing it the same way. And the same thing with your hands and arms. If you're sitting in a chair, you can really put those wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. If your sternum's up and your shoulders are back, it'll help keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back will help you to do that. It also helps you to be able to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation here with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on. And then I'm going to come back in with some guidance after that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawak Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well developed, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you guys chapter 11 from our book, which is titled Meditation, Developing Your Practice. This is where you learn all the ins and outs of meditation and how to actually develop a meditation practice. But before we talk about that, let me just be sure that you understand some of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the unenlightened mind, because what I'm going to share with you here is part of the solution. It's not the entire solution, but it's part of the solution. And it wouldn't necessarily make 100% sense to you if you didn't understand the problems. In this group learning program, it's a 7-month program where I'm gradually walking students through learning all the teachings. And I know many of you guys might not have even been involved or even knew that this program existed prior to today. So let me just share with you something called the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. This will give you kind of like a high-level understanding of what the Buddha discovered in the mind. Because what the Buddha did is he discovered certain pollutions in his own mind, and then he figured out how to eliminate those and to remove those out of the mind. And when you eliminate these pollutions or defilements or the taints, then the mind is experiencing more and more of the qualities of enlightenment. What enlightenment is a mental state that you experience where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. Oftentimes people think that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or any of these other discontent feelings like irritation or annoyance. But what you'll be able to see through the teachings of the Buddha is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. This is the reason why you can eliminate them. If it was other people who was causing you to experience these feelings, you would never actually be able to eliminate them, because you can't change other people. You can't force other people to do things your way. By the time you get to enlightenment, not only have you eliminated all your discontent feelings, but by uprooting those pollutions out of the mind, you'll notice that the mind's focused, concentrated, you'll have clarity of mind and deep memory, because the mind's performing optimally. It's no longer having those pollutions where it's all muddled and lacking concentration. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They'll be at ease because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. That's probably not the case right now. You probably have certain relationships that you get along just fine in, but then you have other relationships where you're struggling, and you might have challenges in those relationships. You can actually transform all of this, where you can get to the point where you're at ease in all your relationships and they're really blossoming. You can get to the point where you don't even have a bad mood any longer, that it's physically impossible for an enlightened being to even experience a bad mood. So I'm going to help you to be able to understand the high-level problems that the Buddha discovered, and then we're going to talk about part of the solution with the meditation, because at earlier parts in this group learning program, I explained the entire solution, but now what I'm doing in all these other chapters is kind of filling that in, helping students to be able to understand this framework that the Buddha shares with you. As I go in today's class, I'm going to pause a few times, opening up for questions, so you guys are able to ask any and all questions that you like, because you might need clarity, because some of the times when you're learning with the teacher, you're going to learn things that you don't currently understand. You might think that you understand things already, but when you're learning in a learning environment, this is an opportunity for you to gain new wisdom, and certain things that a teacher shares might be different than what you currently understand about the world, and that's where you need to ask questions and gain clarity. So if you'd like to ask questions here at the temple, we have microphones here in the white bowl. All you need to do is come and get a microphone. You can take it back to your seat, press the gray button, the lights will come on, and then you can hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using the microphone, if you could turn it off, that'd be really helpful, so that we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody who's in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can ask questions as well, just by putting that into the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then ask any and all questions that you like there. So in terms of the high-level description of what the Buddha discovered in the mind and why it keeps experiencing these discontent feelings and certain struggles and difficulties in your day-to-day life, this is referred to as the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. It's called craving, anger, and ignorance. I'm going to explain to you what each one of these things are and how it produces certain symptoms and certain problematic situations in your day-to-day life, because the mind has these pollutions. And it's when you eradicate these pollutions that the mind will actually be experiencing enlightenment. And this getting to enlightenment is a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It's not instantaneous. It's gradually training your mind to walk towards this enlightened mental state, gradually bringing down these pollutions and gradually increasing the wholesome qualities of your mind. And this is where your mind will be performing more and more optimally. So what craving, anger, and ignorance is first, this craving is where the mind is longing, yearning. It's chasing after the objects of your affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases and chases and chases. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst, that the mind thinks that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction, so it will chase after it. It might be more money, or a bigger house, or a boyfriend, or a girlfriend, or some new job, or some external thing, maybe more jewelry, or clothing, or shoes, or something like this. The mind will just chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are very pleasant for the mind to experience, because the mind's getting its cravings, desires, attachments, its wants, its expectations fulfilled. And when the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. But then when the mind doesn't get what it wants, what it expects, what it's longing, yearning for, then there's painful feelings that the mind experiences, like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and feelings like this. Because the mind really is longing, yearning for this thing, trying to grab onto it, and it can't get it. So the mind experiences these painful feelings. Then there's something called neither painful nor pleasant. These are things like shyness. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if someone came and sat next to you in public transportation and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe the mind's just kind of dissatisfied or uncomfortable. This is what the mind is experiencing in the unenlightened state too, based in craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning. So if the mind's not chasing, what it will typically do is it'll swing all the way to the other side, where it'll be dull and lethargic and sluggish and lazy and complacent. But the Buddha is inviting you to come to this middle way, where you can gradually walk towards your goals and objectives with enthusiasm, with ambition, but without this longing, yearning, and chasing after things. So when the mind's chasing, it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. The mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing. So this is just a little bit about craving, desire, attachment. It's important that you don't believe me on this topic, because none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. If you're going to experience enlightenment, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom to be able to see the truth for yourself about what it is that you're learning with the teachings of the Buddha. So don't believe what I'm sharing with you, because what I'm sharing with you is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Don't believe that. You need to be able to look at your own life and independently verify whether what I'm sharing is true or false. Look at a recent situation where you were angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation. What was it that your mind was longing and yearning for? And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, there were some painful feelings like anger, sadness, or frustration or something else that came into the mind. You should be able to see this for yourself. Now, at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's what the mind does in the unenlightened state with its lack of wisdom, is it'll blame other people for the things that you're experiencing. But you need to be able to see it through these fresh eyes, through this new wisdom. What was it you were longing and yearning for, wanting something? And if you would have just got it, boy, you would have been so happy. But because you didn't get it, you were experiencing painful feelings. And if you have trouble seeing this, let me know, because I will help you. I've had plenty of students over the years ask me questions, and I usually give people examples to be able to help you see this, that your mind's craving permanence. Think about like a boyfriend or girlfriend that you might get together with at the very beginning of the relationship. Things might be going really well for you. You guys might be having all kinds of excitement and pleasant feelings and so happy, right? But then over time, the relationship kind of deteriorates, and then you guys break up and you get angry or frustrated, or maybe you get lonely or bored, or you start missing this person because they're no longer in your life. And the mind is craving permanence here, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, it is impermanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. But as long as you're craving for this relationship to be permanent, when you experience impermanence, meaning change, your mind doesn't like it. Or say, for example, you get really happy or excited when it's sunny outside. Well, then when it rains, you might get irritated or annoyed or frustrated, right? Or if your bank account balance is up here, you get really happy and excited, but then when it goes down here, you get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's all that's happened. It went from sun to rain. It went from balances here to balances here. You can see that it's not other people that are causing you to be angry, because there's not even another person involved. It's just the sun going to rain. Because if you base your happiness on something like the sun is not permanent. So therefore, your feeling of happiness is not permanent either. So now your mind's going to move to this sadness, anger, and frustration when you're not getting what you want. So essentially what the unenlightened mind is doing is it has all these conditions. It says, if my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house, this kind of car, this kind of job, then I will be happy. right? So you're kind of sabotaging your ability to be happy because it's shrinking. It's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller because all of those things can't be true all the time. So if you base your inner feelings on these things, this is the mind craving and longing, yearning, expecting these things to be permanent. And now you can only be happy when you get things this way. And then when those things aren't happening, the mind moves to the painful feelings. And some of those painful feelings that are arising are things like anger, right? So that's the second poison or the second pollution. Because the mind has these craving, desire, attachment. If it gets what it wants, it gets happy and excited. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry. And there's lesser versions of that, like frustration or irritation or annoyance. And when those feelings are arising, they're very painful for you to experience. And the mind firmly believes that these feelings are being caused by something external. So the mind, when it experiences anger and frustration, what you'll typically do is push people away, or you'll push a situation away. This is called aversion. You might have pushed away friends or family in your life, right? You're pushing them away thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get annoyed. Or the second thing you might do is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear this being into doing things your way. Because the mind thinks if I can just get my cravings fulfilled, everything will be perfect. Or the third thing you might do is you might put your expectations on someone, trying to control them and forcing them to do things your way. So as long as you have craving in your mind, this anger is going to arise because you can't always get what you want. And when this anger is arising, this mind will act unskillful and it'll push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. In fact, you might even have people doing that to you that are actually doing those same kind of things. And where all of this is coming from is the third one, which oftentimes people call ignorance. I tend to not use that word. I like the phrase unknowing of true reality, or confusion or misunderstanding or misperception or confusion, because the word ignorance is like a derogatory word. It's a way of talking down to people and a degrading way of talking to people. So when people are translating the words of the Buddha, they're doing it through their own mind, and they don't understand that an enlightened being doesn't talk in degrading and diminishing ways towards other people. So a better way to think about this third poison is the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom, the confusion. As long as the mind has this lack of wisdom, it doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind firmly believes that it's other people causing these feelings. But with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convince yourself to believe it. You haven't really looked to see the truth yourself. So as long as there's this ignorance or this unknowing of true reality in the mind will continue to crave and it will continue to have anger. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. So these meditations that we're going to be talking about are helping you to transform this out of the mind. There's other things that you need besides the meditation, but when we talk about meditation, you're going to see how the Buddha's meditations target each one of these areas, the craving and the anger. The ignorance is eradicated through cultivation of wisdom, where you're not believing any of the teachings. You're learning, examining, and investigating them intellectually. You're then reflecting on his teachings to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to be able to train your mind. And slowly but surely, you'll be able to see that his teachings are true. It's actually working, because there's certain situations that you were once in where your mind is angry and frustrated or agitated or annoyed, and you're in those same exact situations and your mind doesn't experience that anymore. And you can see that these teachings are working. So it's your practice of the teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life, where the real transformation is occurring. But this starts with the intellectual learning, the examination, investigation of his teachings, then the reflection to independently verify whether it's true or false, and then there's the practice. So that's how you get rid of the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, by cultivation of wisdom. That's why you're encouraged to never believe any of his teachings. So when I talk about these meditations, The first two that I talk about are targeting craving and anger. And then the other two that I'm talking about, they're also targeting craving as well, but kind of a unique aspect of your craving. So I'll help you to understand this as we go. But if you start to understand the high level problem in just this little summary that I'm talking about here, it'll help you to understand why the Buddha taught what he taught about meditation. But just understand that there's a solution that is more involved than just meditation. You wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment. It's impossible to do that. You need meditation. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation, but you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. There's other things besides meditation that you would need. But meditation is an important component of your practice to get to enlightenment, but there's many other factors as well. So I'm going to share with you guys, starting off with these meditation basics, just to kind of help you get rooted with some of the basics of meditation. And then we're going to go in and talk in detail about all the specific types of meditation, because the Buddha only taught 4 meditations. So first, just to get us started with some basics, is meditation is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, or walking. So your definition and your understanding of meditation right now might be different than this, and that's okay. That's where you are in your life. But when I talk about meditation and I use that term, this is what I'm referring to, is this dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. And you're doing that in one of the 4 positions of either seated, lying, standing, and walking. And why it's important for you to understand this definition is because sometimes nowadays someone might say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and meditate, or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go for a drive and meditate. Well, if you thought that those things were meditation and you hear me say, hey, I recommend that you meditate 2 or 3 times a day, and you're out walking the dog 2 or 3 times a day thinking that you're getting to enlightenment, this isn't what's going to get you to enlightenment. And maybe those things are things that you actually do and you enjoy going to the gym or gardening or going for a walk with your dog. Sure, do those things if that's what you would like to do. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but just understand that those things aren't meditation. This is what meditation is. It's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session, and you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. And there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's not possible. You're going to need these different positions at different times. It's kind of like assembling a tool belt. And then as terms of developing your meditation practice, you're going to need a meditation teacher. There's only one type of person that can get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides, and that's a Buddha. And a Buddha is very rare in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. And you're going to need help along the path. So you're going to need to be able to find someone who you can reach out to and you can ask questions to. You know, nowadays we're kind of like in a self-service kind of environment where if we'd like to bake a cake, we might just get on YouTube and learn how to bake a cake. Or if we'd like to plant some carrots, we might get online and learn how to plant some carrots. And this is great for those kinds of things. But with getting to enlightenment, it's not like that. You're going to need teachers and guides to help you along the journey. I'll share a story with you of somebody who didn't realize this was the case and what they ran into, so you understand how important this is that you have a teacher. There was an individual several years ago that didn't realize that he needed teachers to be able to get to enlightenment. So he was on YouTube, he was reading books, he was doing all these different things for about 2 years or so. And he worked himself into a real problematic situation. This individual was a doctor, they were a physician. And as they were reading books and they were studying, using YouTube videos and things like this, they got to the point where they were having obsessive thoughts. They just kept thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again. They were sleeping 23 hours a day. They couldn't go to work any longer. They were having suicidal thoughts, wanting to kill themselves, and things of this nature. This individual at one point figured out that, hey, I need help here. And somehow this individual found me on the internet and he reached out to me and he said, hey, these are the things that I'm experiencing. Can you help me? And I was like, sure, I'll help you. Right. So I started helping him through online for about 3 or 4 months. But his case was so significant, I invited him to come to Thailand. And I shyness that I really need to help you here. It's very challenging to be able to help you with this online. So he ended up coming here to Thailand, and I helped him for a while, and then he went back to his home country, still had a lot of work to do, but ultimately he worked his way out of those problems, right? He ended up having a relationship with a fiance that fell apart. He wasn't able to continue with that, but nonetheless, he ended up solving these issues. He got back to work. He's doing just fine now. He doesn't have any of those kinds of situations, but for about 4 to 6 years, his life was quite miserable, having suicidal thoughts, obsessive thoughts. He was sleeping 23 hours a day. He was completely unmotivated to do anything at all. He couldn't even work. His career was falling apart. So I don't suspect that you will ever experience this, but that's because you understand that you need a teacher, you need guides, somebody to help you along the path. And whether you consider that person to be me or somebody else, it's totally up to you. You get to make choices about your own life, who you involve in your life. But what I'm encouraging you to do is to make sure you have somebody that you can reach out to and you can get help from. And whenever you're getting help from a teacher, there shouldn't be any expectations from that teacher, that they shouldn't want anything from you or expect anything from you. So just know that whether you consider me to be your teacher or not is up to you, but you're always welcome to reach out to me. I don't need to hear from you every week, every month, every year, anything like that. You can contact me at any point in your life and say, hey, David, I need your help. Here's some things that I'm encountering. Can you help me? And I'd be right there to help you. So you're going to need somebody to be able to help you, because you can't ask questions to a book. It's not possible. And you're going to be experiencing different things in your journey to enlightenment, and you're going to need to reach out to somebody. And if what you get back from them is, hey, that's normal, keep going, that can be some reassurance for you that you're headed in the right direction and you can build confidence. But if you don't have that person to reach out to, you can run into some problems along the way. So I encourage you to have a teacher. There's 4 positions that you can learn as part of your journey to enlightenment. And you would need these different positions at different times because your body can't be in the same position permanently. I'm going to share with you what each of these 4 positions are and how I've used them, so that then it kind of helps you to build a tool belt to be able to learn how to use these to help you and benefit you. But just understand what I share with you is based on my experience. You shouldn't believe what I share with you. Just learn what it is that I'm sharing, and then you use these different positions in certain ways, and you can verify the truth for yourself and which ways they actually work for you. Because you might actually find that these positions work for you in other situations that I haven't even described. Okay, so what the seated position is where you're either on the floor, you're in a chair, you might be on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, any of these number of things. You can sit however you're comfortable, just like I just shared this morning. Oftentimes you have cushions under your rear. If you're on the floor, you might lightly bring your legs together or put those off the mat, and then you sit up upright to keep your mind attentive and alert. But there's many different ways you can sit. There's not just one fixed way to sit. The seated position is kind of like the primary position that most people use. It's kind of like the go-to position for meditation. I would say a good 80, 90, maybe even 95% of the meditation I've ever done has been in the seated position. But that's just for me, right? Somebody else, they might use another position. So your seated position is very comfortable and it's very accessible. You can use it many different places, right? And then when you're doing the seated position, you might notice that you have aches and pains sometimes during your body. Maybe your hips start hurting, or your knees, or your back. And that's where the lying position comes in, where you can lie flat on the floor, face up, with your arms out to the side, and all your muscles are completely relaxed. You're doing the same exact thing that I'm going to teach you with the mind in each of these positions, but you're just changing the body because you would like to be able to have the body be comfortable so that you can actually train the mind. So you can lay flat on the floor with your arms out to the side. If you've done yoga, I think they call this resting pose or corpse pose or shavasana. These are the different types of poses in yoga that they do, so you might be familiar with that. Then when you're in the lying position or even in the seated position, you might notice that you have a tendency to fall asleep. Sometimes people get sleepy during meditation. And if you're noticing this, you can actually switch to a standing position or a walking position. This will kind of invigorate the mind. So the standing position is where you stand up straight and you clasp your wrist in front of you, or you put your arms alongside of you, or you clasp them behind you. And now with your feet at shoulder width, you can just close the eyes and do the same training with your mind from the standing position. So this will kind of invigorate the mind a little bit. I've also used the standing position at like a bus stop. I might be waiting for a bus and I know it's not going to be here for 10 or 15 minutes. There's nowhere to sit down, and I might just stand there and do a little bit of meditation. It might not be one of my primary meditations, but it's like a little touch-up. I've also used it like in a government office. I might have been waiting in line, and this line only moves every 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe every 15 minutes. And I just stand there and do a little bit of meditation while I'm waiting in this line. So you can use it in these types of situations too. Then the walking position, it's good if your mind is needing to be invigorated because you're falling asleep in your meditation, but it's also helpful if you have an overactive mind and the last thing you're thinking about is sitting down and being still. Maybe you have too much energy in your mind. You're kind of like a little bit overactive in your mind. The walking meditation it's a very intentional walking, that it's not just walking, down the street. There's a specific way to do walking meditation. And I teach this in some of the various courses and retreats that I share. And if you'd like to learn this, you can obviously take those. They're available to you at no cost. But I've also recorded it many times on the internet through your YouTube channel and Facebook, on our podcasts and things like this. So you could learn how to do it through any of those places where it's been recorded. So a walking meditation is very helpful if you have an overactive mind or if you're noticing you're falling asleep in meditation. So this is the meditation basics to kind of help you just get started with understanding a bit about meditation. Now, in terms of starting and conducting your meditation session, it's important to understand that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. What I mean by that is in order to get to the boss, you've got to go through the employee. You can't just walk right into the boss's office. You got to go through the employees. Well, if the employees are painful, they're not going to take you to go see the boss. But also, if the employees are luxurious, they're not going to take you to go see the boss there either, right? So you'd like the employee, the body, to be comfortable, to be in the middle where it's comfortable. You're not interested in it being painful, and you're not interested in it being luxurious. So you need it to be in the middle where it's comfortable, and then you can go train the mind, right? So you'd like this body to be comfortable. So anytime you feel pain during meditation, just change your position. That's something that you can do, right? Don't feel like you have to stay in that position and just breathe through the pain, because that pain is there for a reason. It's telling you, hey, there's something going on in your hip, or there's something going on in your knee. Don't just sit there and breathe through that pain. Instead, just adjust your position, because you'd like the employee to be comfortable so that it can go take you to go see the boss. Because if all the boss is experiencing is just pain, 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 you're not going to be able to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. So you can get rid of that by just changing your position. The Buddha, if you look at his words when he teaches meditation, because we have the words of the Buddha of how he taught meditation and how he guided students in meditation, you can see very clearly what he's teaching in terms of meditation. If you look at his words and what he taught, before he guides students in meditation, he encourages them to set up mindfulness in front of them. What mindfulness is where you have awareness of mind, that you don't just plop down into meditation and start meditating. Because if you just plop down into meditation and start meditating, it might be 5, 10, 15 minutes before you start experiencing benefits. So he teaches you to bring some awareness to the mind before you actually start meditating. And for me, I use chanting to do that. It's really helpful to bring some awareness to the mind. But depending on your practice, you might choose to do something else. Today, you're not required to chant in order to get to enlightenment. It's not something that you would be required to do. During the lifetime of the Buddha, if you didn't chant, you didn't get to enlightenment, because that was the only way they had to remember the teachings. As I was sharing at the beginning, that's what they use chanting for, is to remember the teachings. So they had to chant in order to get to enlightenment. But today, we can read books, we can study YouTube videos, we can talk with a teacher and consult with people. You'll be able to get to enlightenment without chanting. So whether you choose to learn chanting or not, it's a choice for each individual to decide. But if you would like to use it, it will help you to set up mindfulness and ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But if you're not going to do chanting, be sure you do something else, right? You take off your shoes, maybe you go to the bathroom, you empty out your organs. Some people might do a little bit of stretching like yoga or something like that, and then they kind of ease into meditation, bringing a bit of awareness to their mind as they're easing into the meditation. So whatever you choose to do, it's a choice for you. It's your practice, but the Buddha is guiding you to set up mindfulness. This is going to help your meditation to be more successful. In terms of your time, frequency, and schedule of meditation, it's not actually possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time every day. We know that because of the universal truth of impermanence, that things in the world are constantly changing. So if you set up on your schedule that you're going to meditate every day at 8 a.m., I can tell you right now that it's impossible. You will never be able to do that. And the Buddha didn't do that either. And what you would like to be able to do is get back as close to what the Buddha did, because that's what's going to actually lead to your enlightenment, is getting to what the Buddha did. And I know the Buddha didn't meditate at the same time every day, because watches didn't even exist 2,500 years ago, right? He lived 2,500 years ago. So if you ever hear anybody tell you that you have to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day in order to get to enlightenment, you already know that that's not true. And I can assure you that there's nothing special happening at 3:30 in the morning that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse if you meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day, right? So you don't need to meditate at exactly the same time every day, and you actually can't. It's impossible. There were times where I was meditating, and I was maybe 3 minutes into my meditation. My son walks into my room and says, "Hey, Dad, I need you to take me to school." I was like, "Oh yeah, I thought your mom was going to take you to school." He said, "Yeah, me too. She's gone. I don't even know where she's at." I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm taking you to school then," right? So you're going to have these kinds of situations happen because of impermanence, constant change that is happening in the world. So what the Buddha did is he meditated 3 times a day. Morning, middle of the day, and evening. And that's what I suggest you do, is kind of set up these anchor points for yourself, where you know sometime in the morning and sometime in the evening that you're going to meditate. And if you can get a middle of the day meditation in, this is ideal for you. What you would like to do is build up to 2 or 3 meditations per day for 30 minutes. And that can sound like a lot for some people, depending on where you are in your life. But I suspect that there's certain unbeneficial things that you're doing in your life that if you start purging those things out, that you'll actually have a lot more time in your life. Sometimes you might be searching social media 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, or watching YouTube videos for an extended period of time. You can actually minimize those things, bringing it down to maybe 30 minutes or an hour that you're doing those things. And you'll actually have a lot more time in your life. So you'd like to gradually build up to 2 or 3 sessions for about 30 minutes. And understand that it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this kind of frequency in duration. So the Buddha meditated morning, middle of the day, and evening. If you're going to meditate in the evening, it's important that you do so while your mind's attentive and alert. So if you normally go to bed at, say, 10 p.m., you'd probably like to be meditating around 9 or 9:15, right? That doesn't mean you couldn't meditate at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., because you surely could. It just means that if you're going to meditate close to bedtime, don't meditate at 10 p.m., right? Or 9:45, because your mind's already starting to get drowsy at that point. You'd like your mind to be attentive and alert when you're actually meditating, because it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So this is the time, frequency, and schedule of your meditation. Now, sometimes people use alarms when they're meditating. When possible, I suggest that you don't do this, because there's 2 things that are going to happen when you set an alarm during your meditation. Is you're going to be in meditation and you're going to be thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? This is the mind craving and longing and yearning, right? You're trying to get rid of all of that, right? So if you get rid of the alarm, it'll help you to not do that. Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit. Oh man, if I just wouldn't have set the alarm, you could have got so much more benefit. So maybe in the evenings or on the weekends, you don't need an alarm. It's best to not use an alarm. But maybe you're on your way to work and you only got 20 minutes to meditate and that's all you've got available to you. Okay, well, set an alarm if that's what you need to do. But where possible, it's best to not use an alarm. The way you figure out if you're meditating for 30 minutes or longer is that what you do is you look at your clock before you meditate. 9 a.m. And now you start meditating. And then when you're done, you look at your clock again. Okay, 9:15. Okay, you've been meditating for 15 minutes and you know that. So now, next time you just try to expand it longer and longer and longer. Because sometimes meditating 5 minutes seems like an hour. And sometimes meditating an hour can seem like 5 minutes, right? So you like to check in about once a week, check in on your time and see that you're meditating about 30 minutes each session, understanding that it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this. You're not in a race with anybody. You're not in a competition with anybody, right? This is your own personal journey to enlightenment, where teachers and guides are going to help you. So you're not trying to be in competition with anybody. Just gradually build up your practice slowly but surely. Then sometimes you might get sleepy during meditation. And there's 2 solutions here. One I've already given you, which is just change positions, right? You could just change to a standing or a walking or something else like that. But the other option when you get sleepy during meditation, just get some sleep. Right? That's what your mind needs. Just give it to it, right? Because what you might notice is even if you're sleeping 8 or 9 hours a day right now, when you start meditating, your mind's having to work and you're finally giving the mind what it's needed all these years. And you might notice that your mind has more of a tendency to sleep and you're going to get better quality sleep as you're learning how to meditate, because it's almost like a dry sponge and you're finally giving the sponge water, right? Your mind's finally getting what it is needed all these years. And it's like, oh my goodness, thank goodness this person is training me. Oh, I've needed this for so long. I'm going to sleep. This is tiring, because your mind wants to be the wild animal, just frolicking around and running around. And you're like, no, come over here and get some training. And your mind is going to get a little bit sleepy sometimes when this is going on. So even your 3 minutes, 5 minutes into your meditation, sure, you can change positions if you like, but another option is just go to sleep, take a nap, and then when you wake up, get some meditation afterwards. There's kind of like about a 6-month to a 1-year hump that you have to get over, where your mind's going to go through that sleepiness, where it can be a bit sleepy as you're training your mind. So this is normal. You might notice physical sensations during your meditation where you're kind of like itching and things like this. This is also normal, that if you're in meditation and you're noticing an itch, what I suggest you do is just ignore it and just keep focusing on your breath. But if you're in meditation and you're having such a strong urge and you just really want to itch that scratch, go ahead and itch it. Right? Maybe it took you 5 seconds to get to that point. Well, now next time, try to elongate it. Maybe make it 8, 10, or 12 seconds, and then maybe you itch it. And then the next time you make it 12, 15, 20 seconds. Eventually you'll get to the point where the mind can go through the entire life cycle of this itch, and your mind will be unaffected by it. What the mind's doing here is it's craving permanent comfort of the body. And the mind thinks that this body should be permanently comfortable, and it's longing, yearning for that. So when you feel an itch, you want to scratch it, and you have this urge to scratch it. But then there's another one and another one and another one, and you keep wanting to itch everywhere, right? So if you can just understand that this is the body, this is normal, this is the impermanent nature of the body, that you're going to experience these sometimes, you can get to a point where you just focus on the breath and you're unaffected by this itch. And you notice that it arises, it changes, and it's going to fade away because it is impermanent. And you can train your mind to understand that this body is not going to be permanently comfortable, and that's okay. Then you might notice visual stimulation during your meditation. What I mean by that is you might notice certain colors, certain images, things like this, right? People call me sometimes or contact me by messenger and they say, David, I saw green in my meditation. Does that mean I'm going to get rich? Or they say, I saw the color purple. Does that mean my boyfriend or girlfriend's going to come back to me? What does that mean? It doesn't mean any of those things, okay? I'm going to explain to you what this actually is so that you will understand, okay? Your mind is non-physical. It's non-tangible. You can't actually touch it. You can't really point to it. The brain is the physical organ of the body, and these are 2 separate things. You can touch the brain, you can see it, but with the mind, it's non-physical. You are training the mind, and when you're training the mind, it has an effect to the brain. The physical structures of the brain are actually changing, because nowadays we have MRIs, we have CAT scans, we have all these things. Doctors and researchers are researching this, and they can see that people who meditate, the physical structures of their brain are actually changing for the better, and it's actually benefiting you, right? So your sight and the things that you see are actually happening inside your brain. The eye itself is just bringing in light. It's just a lens. The sight is occurring inside the brain. That's why when you close your eyes, you can actually still see things because sight is occurring inside the brain. So when you're training the mind, this non-physical thing, and it has an effect to the brain and the physical structures of the brain are changing, you can sometimes experience certain colors, purple, green, white, gray. You can have certain images. You can have certain memories from the past. This is all normal. The physical structures of your brain are actually going to be changing. You might actually even hear this because I heard it at different times. It was like, I used to walk around with a lot of pressure in my skull. I used to get migraine headaches 3 to 5 times a day, even to the point of vomiting sometimes. But then when I started training my mind with these teachings, all of that went away, that the pressure in the skull is gone. I don't get migraine headaches anymore, any of that kind of stuff. I sleep very, very well. This is all from training the mind, but it's going to have an effect to the physical structures of the brain. And you're going to notice this, that this is occurring. And once you get to a certain point in your development on this path and the physical structures of the brain have changed and the mind has changed, the mind will never regress backwards. But you need to get to a certain point of development of the mind in the brain that it doesn't regress backwards. And scientists and researchers are sharing this with us as well. The Buddha talked about it during his lifetime in terms of the mind. But now scientists are showing us through the brain and the things that they're measuring that they're confirming what it is that the Buddha actually taught. So you might notice these things. It's not that your boyfriend's going to come back to you, your girlfriend's going to come back to you, you're going to get rich. It's just the physical structures of the brain changing. Then sometimes people are taught to meditate with external stimulus. What I mean by this is like incense or music or phone apps or candles or things like this. Maybe music playing in the background. If you've been trained to meditate this way, that's where you are now. But I would encourage you to start slowly stripping those things away out of your practice. Because what's going to happen is your mind's grabbing onto those things, craving for them to be permanent. And now you can't meditate unless you have those things. What you would like to do is train the mind to let go. So if your mind's holding on to this music or this candle or this incense, your mind actually hasn't let go. So if you train your mind to meditate with just 3 things, these are the only 3 things that you'll ever need to meditate, and you can meditate anywhere at any time. There's only 3 things that you actually need to meditate, and you have these with you at all times. The body, the mind, and the breath. Those are the only 3 things that you need. The body, the mind, and the breath. And if you have these 3 things with you, you can meditate. And you'll have these 3 things with you all the way to the end of this life. So if you train your mind to meditate this way, and you're at, say, like a nice park, and you're walking around the park, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is such a beautiful day. I'd like to sit down and meditate. Well, you've got the body, the mind, and the breath. Sit down and meditate. Have a great time. But if you're attached to that favorite candle or that incense, it's like, I can't meditate. I don't have my favorite candle with me, right? Or say you're on a hiking trip 3 days into the mountains of Chiang Mai. You're 3 days away from civilization, and you'd like to sit down in the middle of the jungle and actually meditate. You can do it. You got your body, the mind, and the breath. But if you need that special phone app or that music or that candle, you can't meditate in that situation because your mind is attached to this. So you'd like to strip away all of those things. Again, if those things are what you're doing now, that's what's got you to where you are. But now there's more room to grow and develop and evolve beyond that. And if you're going to choose to train your mind to let these things go, normally the best way to do this is small incremental steps. Your mind will appreciate this. Whereas if you try to go cold turkey on things like this, your mind will typically revolt on you. So if you're meditating right now, say with music, every single meditation session, what I suggest you do is do 1 session with it and 1 session without it. 1 session with it, 1 session without it. And do this for like a week or so. And now when your mind adjusts to that little incremental change, then do 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without it. one session with it, 2 or 3 without it. And now do that for a week or 2 and let your mind gradually adjust to that. And then one session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6 without it, right? And now you gradually bring this thing down out of your life. You can do this with unwholesome things that your mind is holding on to. You can gradually eliminate them out of your life like that. But even wholesome things that you're looking to include in your life, you can gradually increase them that way. So say somebody was interested in moving to a plant-based food supply, for example. It's unwise to just snap your fingers and instantly try to do that. Instead, you can gradually increase this, where maybe one meal you eat plant-based, one meal you eat meat, one meal you eat plant-based, one meal you eat meat. And you gradually increase this over time because you're going to need to find new restaurants, new recipes, new suppliers for food, any of these kinds of wholesome things that you're looking to do. You can do this gradually as well because your mind craves permanence. It does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. If you look at your life, anytime you've been experiencing change, whether it's change in relationships, change in jobs, change in living locations, these are the times that your mind struggles the most. So if you do these little small incremental changes to bring down the unwholesome things and to increase the wholesome, your mind will actually appreciate this a lot more. And you'll find that it's a more sustainable change for you as well. So do you guys have any questions on any of these things that I've been talking about so far? Remember here, if you guys could use the microphones, and then online, if you could put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom, that would be ideal. So do you guys have any questions? No questions? Okay, let me check online here. Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, so now let's look at the words of the Buddha for the 4 types of meditations that he taught. Because I shared with you guys that he taught 4 different meditations. And today you'll see hundreds, maybe even thousands of meditations out there. And oftentimes these meditations are taking you in the opposite direction of enlightenment. And you don't necessarily know that when you're just starting out. So you can be misled towards other things that are unwise and that aren't actually going to help you get to enlightenment. The Buddha only ever taught 4 types of meditation. And this is his words where he's introducing those 4 types of meditations. And by understanding what the Buddha taught and getting as close to what he did as possible, that's what's actually going to produce your enlightenment. So what you would like to do is study with the original words of the Buddha. And that's what our book series has, is it's all the original words of the Buddha to be able to help you to be able to actively learn this path. So these are the 4 meditations that he taught. Prior to this, he was teaching his students about something else, and he was explaining to them that these are things that you need in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And then I kind of extracted this. He says, having based himself on these 5 things, meaning the 5 things he was talking about previously, the monk should develop further another 4 things. The perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual craving. If you have really high sexual craving and you're trying to bring that down, there's a meditation to help you with that. Because if you're having sex, you'll feel really happy and really excited, especially while you're doing it and afterwards. But then when you're not having sex and you really want sex and you can't get it, you'll be angry and frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. So you can actually bring your sexual cravings down so that you won't experience those kinds of things. Or maybe you're having sex with lots of different people and you'd like to minimize that and bring it down to just one person. There's a meditation to help you with that. Then he says, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is a meditation to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will in the mind, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, and annoyance, even dislike. Right now, there might be certain people in your life that you like, and there might be certain people that you dislike. That is actually coming from your own mind. There's certain expectations, certain longing, yearning that you have. And if people meet your expectations and they do what you want, you like them. But if they're not doing things your way, you dislike them. And this is the mind craving permanence, wanting everybody in the world to do things your way. This is coming from the mind's craving, desire, attachment, and the mind's ego. The mind's conceit thinks that I'm right and everyone else is wrong. And if people do things my way, I'm happy and I like them. But if they don't do things my my way, I dislike them. Sometimes people think that dislike is coming from the other person, but it's actually coming from your own mind. So there's a way for you to train your mind to eliminate that, where you can have love and kindness for all beings, not only others, but yourself as well. Because sometimes one of the things that the mind does is it directs that anger and hostility towards yourself. You might have this negative self-talk in your mind where you're saying these negative and degrading things towards yourself. You can actually eliminate that, where you don't do that any longer. So there's a meditation to help you with that. I'm going to introduce you to it. Then mindfulness of breathing, or breathing mindfulness meditation, should be developed to cut off thoughts. This is the meditation we did this morning. This is a primary form of meditation that's going to help you train your mind to let go. And I'm going to explain this to you and help you understand the ins and outs of it. Then the Buddha says, the perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit, I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit of I am, which is nibbana, or enlightenment, in this very life. Okay, so this is a meditation to do something called realizing non-self, which I'll explain to you guys what this is when we get to it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through each of these, helping you to understand the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating and the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating. And I'm going to teach you how to actually do these, because you're going to need to build up these practices. Each individual person is going to need to develop a breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, because that's targeting those two pollutions, the craving and the anger that we were talking about at the beginning of class, the poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. You're going to see that breathing mindfulness meditation is targeting the craving, loving kindness meditation is targeting the anger, so that you're not pushing people away, you're not being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you're not putting your expectations on people and trying to control them. This is what will produce harmonious relationships in your day-to-day life. And then these other two are specialized meditations that are needed in certain situations. So we'll talk about these as we go. So breathing mindfulness meditation is the primary form of meditation that the Buddha taught and which guided him to enlightenment. Again, there's other things that you need besides meditation, but this is the primary form of meditation. And that's why we focus a lot of time on this one, because it's eliminating craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the craving for permanence where the mind is holding on. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and let them go easier and easier. Because with craving, desire, attachment in the mind's going to be holding on and wanting things to be permanent. That's the unwholesome quality that you're eliminating from the mind, training the mind to let go, let go, let go. Then it's helping you to develop the wholesome qualities of mindfulness, or awareness of mind, and concentration, because you need to be aware of what's going on in your own mind, so that when it's longing, yearning, and chasing after things, you can see that, and then you can pull it back. And this is the meditation that's going to help you to be able to do that. Then there's loving kindness meditation, which is eliminating anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions, like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike directed towards others, but also towards yourself as well. You essentially are rewiring the mind here to be loving and kind. But you can't just meditate your way to love and kindness. You're going to need a certain amount of meditation, but you're going to need to go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And the Buddha teaches you how to do that through the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching of the Buddha. But this meditation is something that's going to essentially help you fill up your gas tank so that you can go out into the world and be more loving and kind with the people around you. Then there's a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, because again, that can produce agitation and frustration in the mind when you're not getting sex and you really want it. So you can eliminate your sexual cravings, this central desire. And what you're doing is you're developing what the Buddha calls the unattractiveness of the body. Because the reason why an individual wants to have sex is that they're chasing pleasant feelings and they want pleasant feelings, and this other person is going to stimulate their senses in order to be able to get to those pleasant feelings. And you look at somebody to see whether they're attractive or not. And what you're seeing is the outer shell. You're seeing the skin, the hair, maybe the jewelry or the clothing or the makeup, whatever is there. And you're seeing this outer shell that is attractive to you. So what you're doing with this meditation is you're developing the unattractiveness of the body, where you don't see the body as being something that you want to have sex with. So we'll talk about this more when we get to this one. Then there's this meditation to realize non-self. And some of you guys have studied that with me already, where you understand what personal existence view is, where the mind's clinging to a self and you're looking to eradicate that. So I'll explain to you guys what that is when we get to it. But these are the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating, and these are the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. This is the why behind your meditation. This is the why. Why is it that you're doing these meditations? Because you need to understand that. So first, let's look at some words of the Buddha on meditation and breathing mindfulness meditation. This first little phrase, he says, "A pot without a stand is easy to tip over." A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot is your mind. The stand is your meditation practice. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. It's easy for you to become angry or have stress or anxiety if you don't have a well-developed meditation practice. So a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. So when you're meditating, it's making your stand wider and wider and wider, to the point where eventually, by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's completely stable and steady. It's unshakable. There's nothing that can shake up your mind in the unenlightened state. Right now, if someone close to you died, you might be grieving or sad or sorrowful. That's not your love that's causing that. That's your mind craving permanence, wanting this person to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. So if your mind hasn't been meditating, you haven't been training your mind, when people get close to death or someone dies that's close to you, your mind will be really shaken up by that. You'll feel like someone's pulled the carpet out from under your feet or chopped you off at the knees. If you've experienced the death of someone close to you, you know what I'm talking about. In the unenlightened state, that's what you'll experience. And you're not a bad person that this is occurring. It's just what the unenlightened mind does, because it craves permanence. It wants this person to be permanent, but yet they are impermanent. Because they were born, they had to die. Right? That's the only reason why people die, is because they were born. But the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't understand impermanence. It doesn't understand that grandma and grandpa are impermanent. It's not possible for them to be permanently in the world. So the mind's craving for grandma and grandpa to be permanent, and when they die, the mind gets shaken up by that. So by the time you train your mind fully, you can get to the point where the mind's not shaken up by these things. You can maintain your love and your care for grandma and grandpa, but your mind won't be shaken up when they pass away or when they die. So that's how you are able to do that, is through training of the mind, so your mind doesn't tip over. Then here's a teaching from the Buddha where he's talking about essentially the priority or the goal of this breathing mindfulness meditation. He says, "Monks, there is one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana." What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So here, he's not saying that you only need one thing to get to enlightenment. He's saying that this meditation has one goal. There's one purpose behind this meditation. It's to get to enlightenment. It's kind of like saying your car, it leads to one thing, which is transportation. But you need more than transportation to sustain your life. Right? If you could just meditate your way to enlightenment, the Buddha would have just taught meditation and that's it. But we have 45 volumes of books that are this thick. This is the largest, most complete collection we have of the teachings of the Buddha. It's called the Pali Canon. But he taught many more topics than just meditation. So he's not saying you only need meditation to get to enlightenment. He's saying that this breathing mindfulness meditation, it has one goal, and that is to get you to enlightenment, to get to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. So it's just like your car. It leads to one thing, which is transportation. But of course, you need more than just transportation. You need food, clothing, shelter, medical care. You need all these different things. So this meditation has one goal, and that is to help you get to the peace and joy that is enlightenment. So here's breathing mindfulness meditation. You guys are already familiar with this because we did it this morning. What you're doing is you're focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off and letting it go and bringing your mind back to the breath. Your goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case based on the guidance that we're providing, but that's not actually the goal. You can't eliminate your thoughts. As long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. You would like to have those thoughts. That's going to help you in life. What you're doing in meditation is when you're focused on the breath and your mind moves off the breath, you're noticing that. That's your mindfulness. That's your awareness of mind. When you cut that off and let it go, that's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. And now you come back to the breath. So if you had to let go 10, 15, 20 times during your meditation, this is very good for you because your mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. That's why when you broke up with that boyfriend or girlfriend, you were sad. You were angry for a period of time. You were lonely or bored or missing this person because your mind was holding on, wanting this person to be permanent. But at some point, you let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. Or if she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back in. But as long as your mind is holding on, you can't be peaceful and joyful. So what your breathing mindfulness meditation is doing, along with other things, is training your mind to let go, let go, let go. That's what this meditation is doing. So anytime your thoughts arise during meditation, that's not a problem. That's just what the unenlightened mind does. It has lots and lots and lots of thoughts. Notice it sooner and sooner and cut it off and let it go easier and easier. The unenlightened mind, during meditation, you'll have like a bombardment of thoughts where it'll be like thought, right? In the enlightened mental state, you don't experience that. In the unenlightened state, if your mind's not having thought, what'll happen is you'll have a thought, you'll follow it for a period of time, you'll indulge in that thought, and then like 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. So in the enlightened mental state, you'll have a thought, but you'll notice it and you'll cut it off and let it go and bring your mind right back to the breath. Then you'll have quietness and stillness in your mind in between your thoughts. Then you'll have another thought, right? So an enlightened being still has thoughts. Your goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. So in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that's coming up. Where in day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. Right? It's kind of like a professional athlete. If I was a pole vaulter and I went into the gym, I would maybe do weight training, agility training, cardiovascular training. My training's going to look very different than my sport, right? When I do the training in the gym, it's going to look one way. And when I go do my sport of pole vaulting, it looks completely different. So meditation is the same way. When you're in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that comes up, even if it's a wholesome thought, because you're training your mind to let go. But now in day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. If you have a thought of taking your mom out to dinner and you'd like to practice some generosity with her, no reason to cut that off. Maybe you call her up, say, hey, Mom, what are you doing tomorrow? I'd like to take you out to dinner. Are you available? Right? You don't have to cut that off. But if you have the thought to punch your boss in the face, cut that off, right? Because that's going to produce unwholesome results for you. You'd like to cut that off. That's an unwholesome thought, right? So you're only cutting off the unwholesome things in your day-to-day life. And over time, you'll get to the point where you don't have those unwholesome thoughts. But this is what you're doing in meditation to be able to train your mind to be able to do this outside of meditation. Okay, so this is breathing mindfulness meditation. Any questions on this one? No questions? Okay. So now let's go to the next one, which is loving kindness meditation. This is a meditation that rewires your mind to be loving and kind in all situations. You're going to need this meditation, but you're going to need other things as well. Like I mentioned, you can't meditate your way to the elimination of anger. As long as you're being angry and bitter and hostile and harsh in your relationships, that's all going to come back to you. And oftentimes people think that this bitterness and harshness and hostility is coming from the other person and that they're causing you to be this way. But what you learn is that's not true. It's coming from your own mind. So the last thing you're interested in doing is putting out bitterness, harshness, and hostility towards others, because as long as you're doing that, it's just going to keep coming back to you. And you can see this in your relationships where you're that way. You can see that when you're bitter, harsh, and hostile, those people are bitter, harsh, and hostile right back to you. So by you transforming your mind, learning this better way of life, you can actually get to the point where you're loving and kind in all these relationships. And slowly but surely, you can transform your mind and transform your life where you only have harmonious relationships, where you're only loving and kind to the people around you. And that's what you experience coming back to you. So this meditation is a little bit different. We do this one by leading into it with breathing mindfulness meditation just for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes or so. But then when you get into the loving kindness meditation, you're doing these affirmations where in your mind, you're thinking, may I be peaceful. And you do this on the out breath. And then you breathe in, may I be safe. And then you breathe in, may I be well. And then may I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. So you start with I. Then you go through these rings that you create these rings, about 6 to 8 rings. And then eventually you get to the last ring, which is all beings, because you're not interested in leaving anyone out. And what you're going to need to do is customize this meditation for your specific needs. So if there are certain people in your life that you currently have loving kindness for, usually put like a ring or two of those people first. This is going to be like maybe your mom or dad or brothers or sisters or people like this. And you'd like to bubble up the loving kindness because maybe you already have loving kindness for these people where you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. You have active goodwill towards them. But then you'd like to do some people that you're more neutral about, maybe like a neighbor or a coworker, right? Where it might be, may Bob be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness, right? So you're more neutral about these people. You don't exactly love them or hate them. You're just kind of like a little bit more neutral, right? You don't hate them, but you don't exactly love them either. You don't have this genuine interest in seeing them be well. But then ultimately, you'd like to get to a ring or 2 or 3 of people that you do have anger towards. People that you do hate, people that you are frustrated or agitated around, right? This is your own mind that's causing this. So you'd like to transform this. These might be people that are currently in your life, or they might even be people that are in the past. They might even be people that are dead that you're never going to see ever again. If your mind's holding on to anger, it's just causing harm to your own mind. Sometimes what people think is they're going to hold on to their anger, they're going to hold on to a grudge, and this is going to get back at that other person. This isn't hurting the other person, it's just hurting you. It's like holding on to a hot coal and trying to burn somebody else. The only person that's getting burned is you. So by you training your mind to have loving kindness, you can uproot this anger out of your mind and you can free your mind of that anger. Because you might think you have this anger tucked away in the corner of your mind, but it's actually coming out towards other people as well. It's not just that person that your anger is coming out towards, it's coming out towards others as well. So you would like to fully free the mind of this anger, and this meditation is what's going to do it for you. And then ultimately you'd like to be able to get to all beings. So it's kind of like a loving kindness sandwich where like you start with the meditation, or you start with the chanting, you start with the breathing mindfulness meditation, you move into the loving kindness, you go back to the breathing mindfulness, and then you come out with the chanting, where your loving kindness is in the middle, the lettuce and tomatoes, like the breathing mindfulness meditation, and then the bread holding it all together, that's the chanting. Okay, so this is a different type of meditation, and I teach it and I do it with students in different classes. So you might see me at different times if you're attending classes regularly where we're doing this meditation to be able to help you guys to build this up. It's important to understand that when you're doing loving kindness meditation, this is for your mind. It's not for other people. So sometimes when you're meditating and you hear me say, may mom and dad be peaceful, May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of discontent. You might think that we're trying to change mom and dad. We can't change mom and dad through our meditation. That's not the goal of this practice, to change other people. The goal of this practice is to change your own mind, right? So you're essentially filling up your gas tank with loving kindness so that then you can go out into the world and be loving and kind with the people around you. And as you're being more loving and kind with mom and dad, that's where you'll see your relationship will change. But as long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile with them, that's what's going to come back to you in those relationships. So we're not trying to change other people through our meditation. This isn't actually possible. You can only change your own mind. So if you're doing this meditation, it's wise to do it in the morning so that then you go out into your day-to-day life with full of loving kindness. And now you can be loving and kind with the people around you, whether it's your life partner, your children, your neighbors, your brothers and sisters. And this is what's going to transform your mind and your relationships. Because as long as you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, that's what's going to come back to you. But if you're doing this regularly and you're gradually wearing away this anger, more and more you'll be able to be loving and kind in those relationships. And that's what you'll see coming back to you. But just remember, it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You're not going to be able to do this one time and instantly get rid of your anger, or even 1 week and instantly get rid of your anger. It's going to take some time to gradually wear this away. So this is loving kindness meditation. Do you guys have any questions on this? No questions today, huh? Okay. All right, so I'm about to flip the slide to help you guys to understand about elimination of sexual craving. And what I have on the next slide is actually a dead corpse, because this is part of the training to be able to develop the unattractiveness of the body. And I just give you a heads up, because while it's helpful to be able to see a dead corpse and train your mind to not be disgusted by that, that's something that an enlightened being can look at a dead corpse and not feel sick or disgusted. Sometimes you need to make the choice for yourself, right? Like, it shouldn't be me that makes the choice for you of when you see this image, but I'm going to flip the slide and you're going to see a dead corpse. So if this isn't something you're interested in seeing, that's a decision that you can make by choosing not to look at it. But if you do look at it, it's actually going to help train your mind to let go of craving, desire, attachment, wanting to see things that are pleasurable through your eyes. So I'll just give you a heads up that what I'm about to show you, okay? So this is the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they did what's called 32-part body meditation, where they meditated on the 32 parts of the body. And they kind of visualized this within their own mind, because they didn't have photographic technology at that time to be able to use photographs. What they also used is they used actual dead corpses. Like when there was a dead body in the village, they would bring it to the temple, they would set it up on a funeral pile where they were going to burn it and cremate it, and they would sit around the body and they would meditate, looking at the body deteriorating and all the maggots and pus and fluids and all these other things that are going on with the body. And then at that time, they also had the smell of the body too. And it kind of turns the mind away from being interested to have sex with the body, because it doesn't see the body as being attractive anymore. Where these things are more rare for you to be able to experience nowadays, because they kind of control what happens to dead bodies. But you can actually go to places like cadaver labs and things like this, where you can actually go and view dead bodies. This is something that you can actually do. And they do this in the medical field, or even massage therapists. They will go view dead bodies because it helps them to be able to understand what they're dealing with when they're actually working with an actual body. But what it also helps you to do is develop the unattractiveness of the body, where you no longer view the body as being attractive and something that you want to have sex with. So you can do the 32-part body meditation, or you can look at dead corpses like what the Buddha did during his lifetime. But if you'd like to do something a little bit more sanitary than this, is you can actually use a picture like this. That I just found this one on the internet, right? You can do searches, you can look at YouTube videos nowadays where they're doing autopsies and stuff like this. It can help you to develop this unattractiveness of the body, where you imprint in the mind that this isn't something that's attractive to you to be able to have sex with it. So this is the way that you turn your mind away from longing, yearning, and having sexual craving. Because someone might be having sex with 5, 10, 15 different people all within a month or within a week or something like that. And this is going to produce unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. This is where you get sexually transmitted diseases. You can get beat up and murdered. You can have your material possessions destroyed when people get jealous and start pulling you in different directions. You can lose your money and your wealth through having lots of relationships like this. So if you bring your sexual craving down to just one person, this would be ideal. That you just have sex with one person at a time. And then when you're done with that relationship and you're choosing to move on, then you choose to move on. Ultimately, to get to enlightenment, an individual would eliminate their sexual craving 100%. But when or if you ever choose to do that is a choice for you to make. When you're young, and many of you guys are fairly young, maybe you're having a sexual relationship, or maybe you're interested in having a family or something like this, and now's not that time for you to be able to eliminate your sexual craving. And if that's the case, that's fine. You can actually work your way all the way up to the second stage of enlightenment and continue to hang out there for a period of time. In the second stage of enlightenment, you're going to experience quite a bit of peace and joy, but you're still going to experience discontentedness, particularly around sex. If you're still having sex, sometimes you'll be able to have sex and you'll feel really happy and excited about that. And other times you won't be able to have sex, and that's where you'll be agitated and frustrated or annoyed. But you can kind of hang out in that area as you're making your way through life and do all the other work on the path to enlightenment. And then at some point, when you and maybe your partner is ready and you're deciding to let go of sexual activity, you can move beyond that, because it's the fourth stage of enlightenment where the mind is actually enlightened. And by the time you move to the third stage of enlightenment, you won't actually be having sex any longer at that point. But whether you choose to do that, it's a choice for you to make. It's not up to anybody else. So you could maybe take the next 10, 20, 30, however many years and continue to have sex. But more likely than not, you're not going to be on your deathbed still having sex, right? We're all going to let it go at some point, right? As pleasurable as you might think it is, there's actually something even better in the world than sex, right? It's actually enlightenment. You'll actually enjoy the enlightened mental state way more than you ever enjoy sex. But you need to be able to see that for yourself, maybe have enough sex where you've been there, done that, and you're like, how many more ways can I do that? I've experienced it enough. And at some point in your life, you'll ready to probably move on. And if you're having challenges to do that, that's where this meditation comes in, where you can either take your really high sexual cravings and just bring it down to kind of a moderate level where you have a solid, loyal, faithful relationship with one person. Or if you're trying to get rid of your sexual craving 100%, this meditation will help you to be able to do that, so you don't have that frustration and agitation in the mind. So if you ever are interested in learning this in more detail and understanding other tools and techniques to reduce or eliminate your sexual cravings, you're welcome to talk with me. One of the things that students do is we have private conversations sometimes, personal guidance, and usually this is a topic that comes up during personal guidance, right? Someone might be masturbating or having a pornography addiction, or they might have a lot of different partners and they're trying to thin these things out. So if you ever would like to talk about those things, you're always welcome to schedule personal guidance with me, and I'll help you to be able to understand this. So do you guys have any questions on this meditation? Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I think it's probably one of the very common questions. But if we think that we want to eliminate sexual activity eventually, right? From kind of humanity, is it because if we all stop having sex, we will not have children? And I'm just thinking, if Buddha thought about this, is it the aim eventually? Just a practical question, right?
The reason why an individual's mind needs to ultimately let go of sexual activity is because as long as you have a desire for sex, you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy, because your mind is still dependent on this external thing in order to get to pleasant feelings. That's essentially what sex is. Some people call it making love, but it's not making love. It's stimulating each other's senses in order to get to a heightened, pleasurable aspect of your mind. And now, as long as you're having sex and maybe afterwards, you feel really great. But then when your mind wants it and you can't get it, you're going to feel agitated or frustrated or annoyed. So if you're looking to get to permanent peace and permanent joy, the mind needs to let go of this longing, yearning to have sex. So the goal of the teachings of the Buddha isn't to eliminate humanity, but we know that humanity is not permanent, right? There's just no way, because it's impermanent, because we arose, we change, and we're going to fade away. Sometimes people crave and cling to humanity, wanting it to be permanent, and they can't imagine a time where human beings wouldn't exist on this planet. But there's going to come a time when human beings no longer exist on this planet. It's just a matter of time. If you understand the universal truth of impermanence, you can see that very clearly, that humans are not permanent on this earth. This is one of the ways that could happen, is that if more and more people stopped having sex, then sure, population would decrease, but that's not the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha. The ultimate goal is to help you get to peace and joy, where the mind can be permanently peaceful. And you can't do that as long as the mind has sexual craving, because you'll be happy when you're getting sex, but you'll be frustrated and agitated when you're not getting it.
First step is that you're fine with having sex and fine with not having sex, right? In some way, maybe the first step towards that.
It's not possible to continue to have sex while still getting to enlightenment. It's just not possible, because what you'll notice is that while you're having sex, you'll feel fine, but while you're not having sex, you'll be agitated or frustrated. This is the mind's longing, yearning, the craving. The Buddha describes it as sensual desire. This is out of the 10 fetters, right? I think you've learned that with me before. So what the mind does in the unenlightened state, we call it craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. That's kind of like a general way to refer to it. But when we talk about it in more detail, it's called sensual desire. This is where the mind is longing, yearning through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. It's wanting permanently agreeable contact. And when it's getting it, it gets those pleasant feelings. But when the mind's not getting it, that's when it experiences the painful feelings. So with sex, the reason why it is so pleasurable is that all 6 senses are involved. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. And now when these are stimulated, the mind gets to a point where it's having such heightened pleasurable feelings that the body responds with an orgasm, right? That's the ultimate goal of having sex. Well, there's no way to do that without having craving, desire, attachment, because the mind is craving pleasure through the body, the eyes, the ears, all these different things. And now it can only be happy if it's getting that. And if it's not getting it, then it gets the painful feelings. And sometimes this is even connected to personal existence view, where we might view ourselves through our sexual activity, or we might even view our relationship through our sexual activity. And we think that if we're having great sex, we're having a great relationship, we're in love, right? Or maybe I'm more of a man if I'm having a certain amount of sex, right? So we start identifying with who we are as a person through our sexual activity. And what the Buddha helps you to be able to see is that isn't you. It doesn't define who you are as a person. But the unenlightened mind will cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are, and it'll even define your relationship through that. That's why, like at the beginning, when the sex is really, really good, we think we're in a really great relationship, but over time, the mind gets desensitized to it, because how can you have sex with this person constantly in a stimulating way? It's very challenging, because it's the same thing essentially, right? And now the feelings in your sex, the pleasure goes down, and now the person thinks, we're not in love anymore. We don't have the same passion that we once had, because now our sexual activity isn't as stimulating, and now I need to go find another partner. Where in reality, you might be having a wonderful relationship with this person, and if you define your sexual activity as your relationship, now you might make an unwise decision to go get another partner, when in reality, this partner is a wonderful person to be with. But because we're viewing our relationship through our sexual activity, we think that there's something wrong in our relationship, when in reality, it's just that the body and the mind has gotten accustomed to this activity. I think your mic's off.
Connected to probably meditation on elimination of sexual cravings, but more for me also on walking meditation. So when I do one of those, I focus more like on walking on the steps, and here possibly on a picture or on a dead corpse. I'm just thinking, where is my mind right now, right? Is it focusing on the breath?
Yeah, so what you do here, I'm sorry I didn't explain it during the talk, is you stare at the picture and you basically look at all the little its and bits and pieces of the body, and you're imprinting in the mind that the human body is not attractive. Right? Even when you get to the point where you're not having sex anymore, you'll be able to tell, like, oh, wow, that person's really beautiful, or wow, he's really handsome. You'll know that, right? Because you have wisdom to understand, but you won't see it as something that you want to engage in. You don't want to engage in this sexual activity because you know you're going to experience pleasure for a period of time, but then you're going to end up in the anger and the frustration and the agitation. It's going to happen. You can see it very clearly because the way that these qualities of enlightenment come through is they start shining through, where, like, let's just say you haven't had sex for 2 or 3 months, your mind can actually be quite peaceful and quite joyful in that second stage of enlightenment for about 2 or 3 or 4 months, right? And then you choose to have sex and you'll feel great for a few days, but then you're going to experience like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of frustration and agitation. And you're like, whoa, that 3 months of peace and joy where I wasn't having sex, that is so much better than that couple of hours and couple of days of pleasure that I had. Because now, look, I'm dealing with these 2 weeks or 3 weeks of frustration and agitation because I'm not having sex any longer, right? So you start to appreciate this peace and joy so much more than you ever appreciated the sex. And that's where you got to be able to see the truth for yourself. And oftentimes people can't imagine that there's something better in the world than sex, especially at a young age, because we might have just started having sex and we can't even imagine that there's something better. But that's where you need somebody to tell you, yeah, there is something better, and you'll be able to slowly be able to see that. Okay, so now the last one, which is this meditation to realize non-self. This is a meditation that trains your mind to understand that this body is not you, this mind is not you. None of these things that your mind is holding on to, it's not you, it's not who you are. Because the mind will cling to things like your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation as who you think you are as a person. You might have in your mind the clinging of I am Chinese, or I am Spanish, or I am American, or I am Canadian, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, right? You might have any of this I am in your mind. It can be your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things. Even I am kind. And as long as your mind is clinging to these things, you can only be happy when you're getting what you want. So when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, someone says, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. If you identify with that as who you are, now you'll feel great, you'll feel happy. But now if 2 tables over, somebody says something degrading or disparaging about the identity that you're clinging to, you'll really be frustrated or agitated in this situation. Or say you're working at a job like I am a police officer and you identify with this as who you think you are. Well, as long as you're doing that job, you'll feel great. But when you're not doing that job anymore, like you retire, you get injured or you get fired or laid off, you're going to feel like less of a person. You're not going to feel whole any longer, right? Because anything you cling to, thinking that this is who you are, all those things are impermanent. They are not permanent. So as long as your mind's clinging to these things, thinking that this is who you are, you'll get to a point where you'll feel like less of a person. You'll feel unwhole, particularly if people are saying things in a degrading or disparaging way about anything that your mind's holding on to. You'll feel miserable in those situations. So the Buddha teaches you to realize non-self. And there's more to learn here when I get to chapter 16, which is going to be 5 weeks from now, where I'm going to teach about dissolving the ego. because this is part of the ego, where the mind has a certain perception of who you think you are as a person. And as long as you cling to that, your mind can't be permanently peaceful. So there's a meditation and other techniques as well that is going to help train your mind to strip this away, where you understand that there is a body, there is a mind, it's come together for this existence, but you don't need to cling to any of this as who you think you are. And now you can go out into the world, and when someone says, all Americans are blah, 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 okay, they're not talking about me because I am not American. Or they say all Brits or all Chinese people or all Japanese people or what have you. Okay, that's their opinion, that's their view. They're not talking about me, right? But if your mind has the identity of these kinds of things, when you hear something on the news or you hear somebody in a restaurant say something degrading or disparaging, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So you need to strip away the clinging to any of these kinds of things. And this meditation is going to help you to do this, where it's similar to loving kindness meditation, where you're focusing on the breath. And then as you're breathing in and breathing out, you're repeating these affirmations. I am not the body. And you say it repeatedly on your out breath. I am not the body. I am not the body. I am not the body, right? And then you go to the next one. I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. When we say I do not exist, it's not to deny that there is a human being in existence. It's saying this I that the mind holds on to, that I am this. That's what we're trying to strip away from the mind, so that the mind doesn't hold on to I am kind. I am a great tipper, right? If the mind clings to I am a great tipper, when you're in a situation where maybe you don't tip, you'll feel worthless. You'll feel uncomfortable. Or maybe you give a tip and someone says, wow, you're so cheap. You're like, I'm a great tipper. What are you talking about? Right? You'll be angry when somebody says that you're not a great tipper if your mind clings to the idea that you are. So this I do not exist isn't to deny that there isn't a being in existence. There is a being in existence, but you just need to get to the point where you strip away from the mind any kind of idea or concept of an I being here, where you realize that that's not true. Because what we tend to say in the unenlightened state is you might say, I am hungry. I am not hungry. That's not a true statement, because there's no I here. What the truth is that the body needs food. That's what the true reality is that the body needs food. There is no I here to be hungry, or I am thirsty. There's no I here to be thirsty. The body needs water, right? Or I am angry. There's no I here to be angry. What's truly happening is the mind is experiencing anger. That's the true reality of it. But if your mind clings to this I am angry, and now you're clinging to that as who you think you are, your mind's not going to be willing to let go. So you need to get to the point where you realize there is no I here. It's just certain experiences that you're having. And you can be able to see that more clearly when you practice this meditation and strip all this away. And you finish it up with, I am not the body, I am not the mind, there is no self, I do not exist. And you say these repeatedly over and over and over again. But you usually don't do this meditation until you get to what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are the preliminary phases that your mind goes through, where you experience enhanced qualities of mind before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. Okay, there's 4 stages of enlightenment, and there's 4 phases that the mind goes through. And when you get into these jhanas, which by the time you get to the jhanas, you'll know what those are, you identify, oh, look, the mind is in the jhanas, and you know that, and that's where you usually start this meditation and start doing this one. So this isn't where you'll usually start. Where you usually start is with breathing mindfulness meditation. You develop this for maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You start developing this. You won't master it in that period of time, but you just have a tendency to do it, and you're regularly doing it, and you're practicing it regularly. Then after about 4, 6, 8 weeks, you bring in your loving kindness meditation. And now you start working with these 2. And you do those predominantly when you're first getting started. At some point, if you're interested in reducing or eliminating your sexual cravings, you bring in this one. Then when you get to the jhanas, which are those enhanced qualities of mind, that's where you start doing this one. So these are the 4 meditations that the Buddha taught. Any questions on any of these? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your sharing. I'm really a freshman. What I want to ask is about that. When I do the meditation, my mind will run away maybe 1 minute. So my question is how to reduce the time that every time I'm like the mind will run away, how to reduce the time. And for me, I'm really curiosity about the professional one. Is their mind never ran away, or they just don't struggle with them? Because sometimes I heard about this. If you
The microphone's impermanent. Okay, yeah, I understand what you're asking. So the way that you get better at training your mind in meditation so it doesn't wander so much is actually keep doing meditation. Your mind's going to wander. Even the first year, 2 years, you're going to have that. Even as an enlightened being, you're going to have an occasional thought. Your mind's going to move off your breath. Your goal isn't to stay on the breath the entire meditation. It's physically impossible for you to do that. So you're going to have thoughts, but just notice them sooner and sooner and let them go easier and easier. So you will have thoughts. That's normal. The goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. So the way that you get better so that your mind doesn't wander so much is first, you need to develop your meditation practice and consistently do it for 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more. But the second thing you need to do is fully implement the entire Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. And you need to be able to learn it through the original words of the Buddha, which all these resources that I share will have, because it's not just meditation. It's going to help you knock down your craving, because that's why the mind's wandering and moving around, and that you can't cut it off and let it go easily is because the mind's longing, yearning, and craving. There's other techniques in this Eightfold Path. There's 8 individual factors that you would need to practice. Meditation is only one of them. So you're going to need these other things that's going to train your mind to let go. Generosity is one of those, but there's plenty of things in there. But if you're not putting together the entire Eightfold Path, just doing meditation, your mind's going to wander quite a bit. So if you'd like to learn the Eightfold Path, you can use the first book, chapter 4 and 5. That would be a great place to start. I have it online. You can download it for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get it printed versions here by reimbursing us for it, or you can get it online through Amazon. I even have an audiobook that I turned this into an audiobook through YouTube or our podcast. You can learn it that way too. So chapter 4 and 5, and then you can learn through the videos the Eightfold Path as well. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any questions online either. So I'm just going to end with this one last thing. These are the words of the Buddha. He says, meditate, monks. Do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. Right? This is like the only thing you'll ever get from the Buddha, where he's like, all right, come on, go do something, right? He's never going to push you. He's never going to force you. He's not going to guilt and shame and fear you into anything. He's already peaceful. He's already joyful. He's not trying to convince you anything. He's just saying, hey, you would like to learn how to get to this peaceful, joyful mental state that I've obtained? Here's how to do it, right? So this is the only thing you're ever going to see from him, where he's saying, meditate, monks. Don't be complacent, lest you'll regret it later. This is my instruction to you. So when you're angry, when you feel stress, you feel anxiety, when you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you're feeling miserable, you'll regret it if you haven't been meditating. That's essentially what he's saying to you, right? So if you dedicate your time and energy towards developing your meditation practice, you'll be able to see that it's slowly working to help you get to more and more peace and more joy. One of the things that I say along with this, is to never give up. Never give up on your meditation practice. Giving up on your meditation practice is just like, the heck with it. I'm just going to be angry for the rest of my life. The heck with it. I'm just going to be stressed and have anxiety for the rest of my life. I don't care, whatever, right? So that would be giving up on your meditation practice. And you're not interested in doing that. There is an escape for you. There is a better way of life. Just like if you get an email and you're not interested in being on that email list anymore, you can opt out. You can opt out of the anger. You can opt out of the stress and anxiety. You just need the wisdom of how to do that. Right now, maybe prior to this class, you didn't even know it's possible to get to permanent peace and permanent joy. But there's an escape for you. There's a way to get to permanent peace and joy. So you would like to get to the point where you never give up on your meditation practice. Your practice is going to go up and down at different times, right? If you follow the recommendation that I'm sharing, which is 2 to 3 meditations a day, let's just take 2 per day. In a month, that's 60 meditations, right? If you're doing 52, 53, 54 meditations, you're going to make your way to enlightenment. Right? It's not about whether you miss meditation today, whether or not you get to enlightenment. It's if you miss meditation today, what are you going to do next? Is that going to be 1 week, 1 month, 1 year that you're missing meditation? Yeah, you're not going to get to enlightenment that way. But if you're doing 52, 53, 54 meditations a month and you're doing that consistently over a long-term period, you'll make your way to enlightenment. It's only a matter of time that you'll experience that, right? So you're going to need to have a long-term, consistent practice and not beating yourself up about whether or not you missed meditation today or not, because you're going to miss meditation sometimes. It's normal. Your meditation practice is impermanent, right? So just gradually build up your meditation practice slowly but surely, and make sure that you're not judging your meditation. Sometimes when people get to the end of their meditation, they'll say, oh, that was a bad meditation, or that was a good meditation, right? Every meditation is beneficial for you. It doesn't matter. If you sit down and you're meditating for 5 minutes and you get to the end of that meditation, you're like, oh my goodness, my mind is so busy. That was good. That was beneficial for you. You just gained some mindfulness or awareness of mind. You gained some wisdom to know that your mind is really busy. And if you have any really impactful decisions to make today, maybe you delay those decisions and you don't make those decisions today. Maybe you wait for another day. So don't think that every single meditation is going to be wonderful. And if you don't have that wonderful meditation, it's a bad meditation. And I'm no good at meditation, so I'm just going to give up. Right? No, that's the whole reason why you need to meditate, because you need more practice and you're not able to meditate very easily, right? So you're not going to be able to ever become proficient at meditation if you give up. So I encourage you to just stick with it and don't ever give up, because that would just be resigning yourself to experience anger and frustration for the rest of your life. And that's no way to live life. Okay? So gradually, consistently building up your practice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest in learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to, because I teach classes every Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And I even have courses and retreats at different times during the week and the month that you can attend. And it's all available for you at no cost. In fact, today at 6:30 p.m., we're going to be doing meditation in the main hall. So if you're coming for the walking market to do some shopping, because it's usually, it's right out here in front of the temple, this whole street will be the walking market. If you'd like to stop by and do some meditation at 6:30, we're going to be doing meditation in the main hall tonight. And then at 9 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be here teaching the same exact class that I just taught you. I'm going to be teaching that as well. We're going to do meditation at the beginning, and then I'm going to teach this topic to the people that come at 9 p.m. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be doing meditation together. And then I'll open up to any and all questions that you guys have. In fact, this Wednesday, we're going to be doing loving kindness meditation together. So if you guys would like to do that, you're more than welcome to come and learn loving kindness meditation on Wednesday. And you can see our calendar over there on the bulletin board, or you can see it on our website. You can come and talk to me and I'll help you get plugged into what you need to gradually make your way towards enlightenment. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap, sawadee krap, sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.